Sure. Good evening, everyone. So this particular production has been a labour of love. Emma is a novel that you will have seen in some shape, way or form as a film, we're Clueless perhaps, or with many leading actresses over the past 20 or 30 years. And so much so that last year, they, even in the middle of COVID, they managed to produce a wonderful edition of Emma. So we have our own here, right here at Rodine. And this production really does use different types of theatrical kind of skills and techniques. There's a little bit of narration. And we have two casts. We have cast 1 and cast 2 because we have so many, so keen drama students here that I wanted to give them all a chance to show you how talented they are. Okay, so please enjoy and welcome on stage.
Emma Woodhouse, handsome, clever, rich, with a comfortable home and a happy disposition, seemed to unite some of the best blessings in existence. I had lived nearly 21 years in the world, with very little to distress or vex her.
She dearly loved her father, but he was no companion for her. He could not meet her in conversation, rational or playful, for having been of
valedictorian
all his life, without activity of mind or body. He was a much older man in ways than in years.
They lived in Highbury, a large and populous village amounting to a town, to which Hartfield, in spite of its separate lawns and shrubberies in name, did really belong. The Woodhouses were first in consequence there, did really belong.
Is that handsome hero?
Yes. Mr. Knightley!
Ah, Mr. Woodhouse, delightful to see you. It is a beautiful moonlit night, is it not? Ah, Mr. Woodhouse.
What are you doing?
Just playing.
With my book, my new book.
We just want to know the story, Auntie. Sorry.
It's fine. Go on then.
Ah, Mr. Woodhouse, delightful to see you. It is a beautiful moonlit night, is it not? Ah,
Mr. Knightley is not a brainless coxcomb. Mr. Knightley is like this.
It is very kind of you, Mr. Knightley, to come out at this late hour to call upon us. I'm afraid you must have had a shocking walk.
Not at all, sir. It is a beautiful moonlit night, and so mild that I must draw back from your great fire.
But you must have found it very damp and dirty.
Dirty, sir? Look at my boots. Not a speck on them.
But there was a vast deal of rain here. You must have found it very hard to walk.
Not at all, sir. Though Miss Taylor's wedding, I found that very dreadfully sad on her
Poor
behalf.
Miss Taylor.
Who's Miss Taylor?
Miss Taylor was Emma's governess. She just got married today to a Mr. Weston.
Poor Miss Taylor.
Poor Emma, and Mr. Woodhouse, if you please, for you will sorely miss her. But I cannot possibly say poor Miss Taylor. It must be easier for her to have only one to please rather than two.
Emma. Who's playing Emma?
Oh no! Me! Stop, or neither of you will play Emma, all right? This is Emma.
Especially when one of those two is such a troublesome, fanciful creature. That is what you have in your head. I know what you would certainly say if my father were not by.
I believe it is very true, my dear, indeed. I believe I'm sometimes very fanciful and troublesome.
My dearest papa, you do not think I could mean you. I suppose Mr. Knightley to mean you. Oh no, what a horrible idea. I mention you myself. Mr. Knightley loves to find fault with me. In a joke, it's always in a joke. We say what we like to one another. But have you forgotten, Papa, that one matter of joy to me that I made the match? I made the match 4 years ago, and have it take place when everybody said Mr. Weston may never marry again. They comfort me for anything.
My dear Emma, I wish you would not make matches and foretell things, for whatever you say always comes to pass. Pray, do not make any more matches.
I promise to make none for myself. But I must indeed for other people, for it is the greatest amusement in the world. Everybody said Mr. Weston would never marry again, but I believe none of it. I planned that, and I was blessed with success.
I do not understand what you mean by success. Success supposes endeavour. You made a lucky guess, and that is all that can be said.
Emma never thinks of herself if she can do good to others. But my dear, pray, do not make any more matches. They are silly things and can break up one's family so grievously.
Only one more, Papa. Only for Mr. Elton. Oh, poor Mr. Elton, I must look about a wife for him.
Miss Harriet Smith was a girl of 17 whom Emma knew very well by sight and had long taken an interest in on account of her beauty. Yes.
I am not struck by anything remarkably clever in Miss Smith's conversation, but I find her altogether rather engaging for showing so proper and becoming a deference, and seemingly so pleasantly grateful for being admitted to Hartfield, and so artlessly impressed by the appearance of everything that she must have good sense and deserve encouragement. These soft blue eyes and all those natural graces should not be wasted on the inferior society of Highbury. The friends for whom she had just parted, though a very good sort of people, must have been doing her harm. Family by the name of Martin. Very coarse and unpolished, and very unfit to be the intimates of Harriet Smith. I will notice her. I will improve her. I will detach her from bad acquaintance and introduce her into good society. I will inform her opinion and her manners. It will be an interesting and certainly a very kind undertaking. Now, what sort of looking man is this Mr. Martin?
Oh, not handsome. Not at all handsome. I thought him rather plain at first, but I do not think him so plain now. One does not, you know, after time. But have you never seen him? He's passed you often.
That may be, and I may have seen him 50 times, but without any idea of his name. A young farmer is the very last sort of person to raise my curiosity. A degree or two lower, and I should hope to be helpful to his family. But a farmer can need none of my help, and is therefore as much above my sense as much as he is below it.
Hello, Mr. Martin. Hello, Miss Smith. Miss Woodhouse. Think of us happening to meet him. How very odd. He's been out looking for walnuts for me.
In December,
Well, that's what he said. What do you think of him, Miss Woodhouse? Do you think of him so very plain?
yes. He is very plain, undoubtedly remarkably plain, but that is nothing compared to his entire want of gentility. I did not expect much, but I had no idea he could be so clownish, so totally without air. I imagined him a degree or two nearer gentility.
I can assure you he's not so gentle as a real gentleman.
Harriet, since you have been acquainted with us, you have been in the company of some very real gentlemen. Are you not struck with the difference between them and Mr. Martin? What will he be in a few years?
There's no saying, indeed.
Oh, well, there's pretty good guessing. He will be a completely gross, vulgar farmer, completely inattentive to appearances, and whose only interest is in profit and loss.
But these are important things, Miss Woodhouse.
Mr. Elton was the very person fixed upon by Emma for driving the young farmer out of Harriet's head. He had a comfortable home for her at the vicarage of Highbury, was reckoned very handsome, and the girl who could be gratified by Robert Martin's riding about the country for her might as well be conquered by Mr. Elton's affections.
Curtsy.
Sorry. You have given Miss Smith all that she is required. You've made her graceful and easy. She was a beautiful creature when she came to you. But in my opinion, the attractions you have added are infinitely superior to what she has already received from nature.
I'm glad you think I've been useful to her, but Miss Smith only wanted drawing out. She had all the natural grace and sweetness and artlessness in herself. I have done very little.
If it were admissible to contradict a lady,
I have perhaps given her a little more decision of character and taught her to think on points that had not fallen in her way before.
exactly so. Skillful has been the hand.
Great has been the pleasure. I'm sure I never met with a disposition more truly amiable.
I've no doubt of it. Will you be going to Cole's dinner party?
No, I'm afraid not.
Oh, what a pity. Well, I must be off now. So nice to... Well, goodbye.
Yes.
Letter for Miss Smith.
The letter was from him, from Robert Martin, and it contained a direct proposal of marriage.
Miss Woodhouse, would you read the letter? Pray do. I'd rather you would.
Emma was not sorry to be pressed. She read the letter and was surprised. The style was much above her expectations. In fact, as a composition, it would not have disgraced a gentleman. The language was plain, but it was strong and expressed good sense, warm attachment, liberality, even delicacy of feeling.
Well, is it a good letter? Or was it too short?
Yes, indeed, a very good letter, so good a letter. Harriet, that everything considered, I think one of his sisters must have helped him. I can hardly imagine a young man could express himself so well if left to his own powers. And yet, it's not the style of a woman. No, it is too strong and concise. No doubt he is a sensible man, and when he takes a pen in his hands, thoughts find proper words. Yes, it is so with some minds, vigorous, decided, not coarse. A better written letter than I had expected. Still, a woman is not to marry a man merely because he can write a tolerable letter.
And it's but a short letter too. What shall I do?
Emma? Thank you. I have good reason to believe that your little friend Harriet will soon hear of something to her advantage.
Indeed? Of what sort?
A very serious sort, I can assure you.
Very serious. I can think of but one thing.
I have reason to think that Harriet Smith will soon have an offer of marriage, and from a most unexceptionable quarter. Robert Martin is the man. He is desperately in love and means to marry her. I never hear better sense from anyone than Robert Martin. He is open, straightforward, and very well judging. I had no hesitation in advising him to marry.
And Harriet had no hesitation in refusing.
Refusing? Then she is a greater simpleton than I ever believed her. What is the foolish girl about?
Oh, to be sure, it is always incomprehensible to a man that a woman should ever refuse an offer of marriage. A man imagines a woman to be ready for anyone who asks her.
So this is your doing. You persuaded her to refuse him. Emma, you have been no friend to Harriet Smith.
She is superior to Robert Martin. There can scarcely be any doubt that her father is a gentleman and a gentleman of great fortune. She may well make a superior match. I believe Mr. Elton has shown considerable interest.
Mr. Elton? Ludicrous. I perceive that your intimacy with Harriet will be a very unfortunate one for her. You will puff her up with such ideas of her own beauty that within a while, nobody within her reach will be good enough for her. Vanity, working on a weak head, produces every sort of mischief. Miss Harriet Smith may not find offers of marriage flow in so fast, though she is a very pretty girl. Men of sense, whatever you may choose to say, do not want silly wives. Let her marry Robert Martin and she is safe, respectable, and happy forever. But if you encourage her to expect to marry greatly, she may be a parlour boarder at Miss Goddard's all the rest of her life, or till she grows desperate and is glad to catch at the old writing master's son.
It is not always I am so absolutely satisfied, so entirely convinced my opinions are as right as you, Mr. Knightley.
What a lovely house. I mean, he's going to see Mr. Elton's house. Such a sweet, beautiful house. Such lovely yellow curtains.
It is a very vulgar house.
Yes, but she is in love.
True. Could you contrive of some way of us going in?
Later, perhaps.
I do so wonder, Miss Woodhouse, that you should not be married. Not going to be married. So charming as you are.
My being charming, Harriet, is not enough to induce me to marry. I must find other people charming. One other person, at least. But I have very little intention of ever marrying. I believe few married women are half as much mistress of their husband's house as I am of dear Hartfield.
Or to be an old maid at the last, like Miss Bates.
An impoverished acquaintance who, despite her professed charity, Emma generally neglects to visit.
Do you know Miss Bates' niece?
Jane Fairfax, a beautiful and elegant young woman, learned and accomplished in many fields. Her piano playing is a delight.
I'll practice. I'll practice tomorrow for at least an hour.
Practice what?
My piano playing.
Oh, but you play so beautifully.
As I was saying, Jane Fairfax, though so full of accomplishments, is but poorly situated and will likely end her days as a governess.
Oh, We are always forced to be acquainted every time she comes to Highbury. Heaven forbid I should bore people half as much about all the Knightleys together as Miss Bates says about Jane Fairfax. All her letters are read 40 times over. Compliments to her friends go round and round again. And if she does but knit a pair of garters for her grandmother, one hears of nothing else for a month. One is sick of the very name Jane Fairfax.
Are we talking about Jane?
Oh, hello, Miss Bates. Have you heard from Miss Fairfax recently? Oh, I do hope she is well.
Oh, thank you, so kind, obliging. Please do come in and visit. Oh, there it is! I was sure it could not be far off, but I put my housewife upon it, you see, without being aware, and so it was quite hid, but I'd had it in my hand so very lately, I was sure it must be upon the table. I was reading it to Mrs. Cole. Have you received an invitation to the Coles?
Oh, yes, yes.
No, a rather inferior family.
I was reading it again to my mother, for it is such a pleasure to her, a letter from Jane, and she can never hear it often enough, so I was sure it must be upon the table, and there it was, just on her housewife, and as you are so kind to wish to hear what it says. Oh, but first I really must, in justice to Jane, apologise for her writing so short a letter. She wrote 2 pages, hardly 2, and in general she fills the whole page and crosses half. My mother often wonders that I can make it out so well. My mother's eyesight is not what it used to be, but she can still see amazingly well, thank God, with the help of spectacles. But Jane, who with us soon, and for 3 months at least.
Oh, what a very great pleasure.
Jane caught a cold, poor thing, so long the 7th of November, as I'm going to read to you, and hasn't been well since. A long time is it not for a cold to hang upon her? She'd not tell us so as not to alarm us. Just like her, so considerate. Oh, but Jane is so far from well that her friends, the Campbells, think she'd better come home and try an air that always agrees with her, and no one could nurse her as we do.
I'm afraid we must be off now. So nice to see you.
The letter?
I have a charitable visit to pay to a poor sick family.
Emma was very compassionate, and the distresses of the poor were as sure relief from her kindness as her purse. She understood their ways, could allow for their ignorance, had no romantic expectations of extraordinary virtue from those education had done so little, entered into their troubles with ready sympathy, and gave her assistance with as much knowledge as goodwill.
These are the sights, Harriet. To do one good. How trifling they make everything else appear. I feel now as if I could think of nothing but these poor sick creatures all the rest of the day.
Very true. Poor creatures. One can think of nothing else.
And I do not think the impression will soon be over.
Oh, dear, no.
On the other hand, we have done all we can. Mr. Elton!
My dear ladies, what an unexpected surprise. May I have the honour of accompanying you?
How fortunate to meet on a charitable visit. This should bring about an increase of love on both sides. Surely a good time for him to propose were I anywhere but here. Oh, please do walk on whilst I attend to my lace.
You may excuse me, I have a sermon to attend to.
Oh no! Part of my lace is gone and I do not know how I am going to contrive. Mr. Elton, I must beg leave to stop at your house and ask your housekeeper for a bit of ribbon or string.
Certainly. Nelly!
I hear the political situation in France is still very troublesome. Do you think the economic crisis will reach Britain, miss?
Yes, very much. Bilberry jam, thanks, Nelly.
What do you think of the new poetry, miss?
Yeah, shocking rain we've had, isn't it? Milk and 2 sugars, thank you.
Oh, Miss Woodhouse, we were just talking.
Yes?
Yeah, a lovely camembert he tasted last night.
No, how wonderful. Cautious, very cautious. He advances himself inch by inch until he hazards himself secure. He must now be left to himself. There are people, the more you do for them, the less they will do for themselves.
Hi, Miss Woodhouse, I'd rather this, please. Do you really think I should ask Mr. Elton to contribute to my book of riddles?
Certainly, Harriet. What better means could there be of allowing him to declare his feelings for you?
Well, I was thinking maybe another time, but maybe I should have. Kind of regretting the decision now.
Oh, look, there's Mr. Elton. You must have your riddle.
Good day, ladies. I have a charade for Miss Smith's excellent book. Miss Woodhouse, you are to be highly commended in furthering this young lady's education in this manner. It was written by a friend to a young lady who has been the object to his admiration. Perhaps you may not dislike looking at it.
My first displays the wealth and pomp of kings, lords of the earth, their luxury and ease. Another view of man my second brings. Behold him there, the monarch of the seas. Thy ready wit the world will soon supply. May its approval beam in that soft eye. What can it be, Miss Woodhouse? I haven't an idea. I've never seen anything so hard. Behold him there, the monarch of the seas. Is it Neptune? Or an octopus? Or a shark?
Shark's only got one syllable.
Mermaid? Dolphin? Does Mr. Elton think I'm like a dolphin? Would that be a favourable sign, Miss Woodhouse?
Dolphins and sharks, nonsense, my dear Harriet. My first displays the wealth and pomp of kings, that is court. Behold him there, the monarch of the seas.
Boat! Court boat?
Ship. Court ship.
Courtship!
Courtship, Harriet, courtship. Read it in comfort to yourself. There can scarcely be any doubt that it was written for you.
For me? For Mr. Elton? He might marry anybody. That is so beyond anything I might deserve. I do think it is the best riddle I have ever read. It is longer than any we have had before.
Length is not everything, Harriet. But a poet in love must be encouraged. Why don't you write it in your book?
Christmas Eve. Dinner at the Westons. But Harriet has a bad cold.
Drive on.
Well, it appears, Mr. Knightley, that you are somewhat in error regarding Mr. Elton's affections for Harriet. The way he rode all the way to London to have my portrait of her framed seems to indicate a great deal of affection.
For her or for you?
Affection for me? What an idea. Harriet is terribly sick in bed with a bad cold, and Mr. Elton will surely visit her. I very much doubt we will be seeing him tonight. Oh, Mr. Elton!
Miss Woodhouse.
How lovely to see you.
Mrs. Weston, how goes the sacred union of marriage? And when are we to expect your stepson, the dashing Frank Churchill?
He has been wanting to come to us ever since September. Every letter has been full of it, but he cannot command his own time. But now I have no doubt of seeing him in the second week of January.
Frank Churchill is coming soon. He wrote to his new mother on the occasion of her marriage. I suppose you've all heard of the handsome letter Mr. Frank Churchill has written to Mrs. Weston. I heard it was a very handsome letter. Mr. Woodhouse saw it, and he says he never read a more handsome letter in his life.
Yes, it was an exceedingly good, pretty letter, written from Weymouth and dated 28th of September, and began, "My dear madam." But I forgot how it went on, and it signed Frank Weston Churchill.
There was something in the name, in the idea of Mr. Frank Churchill, which had always interested Emma, and she had frequently thought, especially since his father's marriage to Miss Taylor, that if she ever were to marry, he would be the very person to suit her.
He ought to come, should he only stay a couple of days. One can hardly contrive that a young man cannot have it in his power to do as much as that. Oh my God, the snow!
Snow! Your father will not be easy. Why do not you go?
I am ready if the others are.
Shall I ring the bell?
Yes, dear.
All this ardent attachment, this unequal love, this fearing, this hoping. I'm ready to die. For you, Emma. Only you.
I am very much astonished, Mr. Elton. This to me. You forget yourself. You mistake me for my friend. Any message to Miss Smith I should be more than happy to deliver. But no more of this to me, if you please.
Miss Smith? A message to Miss Smith? What can you possibly mean?
Mr. Elton, this is the most extraordinary conduct, and I can account for it in only one way. You are not yourself. Command yourself enough to say no more about it, and I will endeavour to forget it.
Oh, this unequal love, this unparalleled passion, this tumescent.
It is impossible for me to doubt it any longer. You've made yourself too clear. After such behaviours I have witnessed in the past months to Miss Smith, to be addressing me in this manner is an unsteadiness of character which I had not supposed possible. Believe me, sir, I am very far from gratified in being the object of such professions.
Good heavens! What can be the meaning of this? Miss Smith! Who can think of Miss Smith when Miss Woodhouse is near? And for many past weeks, and everything I've done has been marking the sole view of marking your adoration of yourself, and the encouragement I have received.
Encouragement? I gave you encouragement! Sir, you've been most entirely mistaken in supposing it.
Well, we must move on. So,
As to me, I had no thought of matrimony at present.
A ball for my dear?
No, thank you, Papa. It's time to bed.
Good night, my dear.
The hair was cold and the maid sent away, and Emma sat down to think and be miserable. It was a wretched business indeed. Such a development of everything most unwelcome, such an overthrow of everything she'd been wishing for. And such a blow for Harriet. That was the worst part of all. I mean, every part of it brought pain and humiliation of some sort, but Emma's suffering was little in comparison to that would be Harriet's.
I have not persuaded her into liking the man. I could have borne anything. He might have doubled his presumption to me, but poor Harriet, she might have never even thought of him but for me. Now that I've been satisfied in persuading her not to marry young Martin, there I was quite right, but I should have stopped and left the rest to time and chance. I was introducing her into good company and giving her the opportunity of pleasing someone worth having. I ought not to have attempted more. I've been but half a friend to her. I'm sure I have not an idea of anybody else who could be of any interest to her. William Cox? Oh, no, I could not endure William Cox. Pert young lawyer.
What a lovely house. Mr. Elton's house. Such a sweet, beautiful house. But it's a feeble beam in that soft eye.
I can keep her in the dark no longer. I must tell her. Would you care to break the news?
No.
Oh, Harriet, I'm sorry.
Oh, Emma, you must not blame yourself. Mr. Elton is so completely superior to me. I should never have aspired to win his heart.
Perhaps he was rather...
Perfect! Yes, I know.
Oh dear, she's more resolutely in love than I ever believed her. And is she not truly simple and artless? It would profit me to be more like her.
It's a little late in the day for you to become simple and artless, Emma.
Oh, Mr. Knightley is here. I cannot face anyone just now.
Emma?
Knightley. Emma, Frank has been delayed again. He shall not now be with us next week as we had hoped. Mrs. Church is so possessive. She seems to have a peculiar hold over Frank.
Yet another delay, Emma. The dashing Frank Churchill seems disinclined to visit Highbury.
What nonsense! He wishes exceedingly to come, but the Churchills will not spare him.
If Frank Churchill had wanted to see his father, he would have contrived it. A man of 23 must be able to do so.
It is very unfair to judge anyone's conduct without an intimate knowledge of their situation.
There is one thing, Emma, which a man can always do, and that is his duty. With vigour and resolution, a man must always...
Emma, would it be safe to send a little pop to the bait?
Of course, Papa. You were saying?
A man must always...
You think it will do them no harm?
Of course not, Papa. Please, go on.
It is always possible for a man to do his...
We must be sure not to frighten Grace. Do you not agree, Mr. Knightley?
Yes.
Anyway, I'm sure that when he does arrive, he will be a most agreeable young man, despite you're determined to think ill of him.
Not at all. I would be most ready to acknowledge his merits, but I hear of none, save that he is well-grown and good-looking.
Well, let us be satisfied with that. At Highbury, we do not often see good-looking young men.
Sounds rather like a young puppy to me. A letter from Jane! A letter from Jane, Miss Knightley. A letter from Jane. Jane Fairfax is coming. She wrote to us, though it is not her usual time for doing so. And I read to her mother 3 times. 3 times? Her eyesight is not what it used to be. Oh, but please excuse me. I must hurry off my preparations. Oh, a letter from Jane. A letter from Jane. Oh, Mr. Woodhouse. A letter from Jane. Jane Fairfax is coming.
What's that?
Jane Fairfax is coming.
Jane Fairfax is coming. Good. A most excellent young lady, highly accomplished and refined, and would you not agree, Emma, that she has that particularly elegant sort of beauty which you especially admire?
Yes.
A woman of great distinction and merit.
Why don't you like her, my dear?
Because she's too bloody perfect.
Have you heard the news? I heard it just now from Mrs. Cole. Have you received invitation to the Coles? No? Oh, well, I'm sure it must be on its way. Such excellent people, the Coles. Such charming neighbours. I must tell you my news. Oh, but I've got to introduce Jane! Oh, of course, you know her already. She's been reading Proust to Mama. A little overmind at times, but Mama seems to enjoy it. Oh, look, there's Mr. Woodhouse. We must go say hello to him. Hello, Mr. Woodhouse!
Emma, I have some news that may interest you.
Yes?
Mr. Elton is going to be married. That was my news.
Well, I suppose there is no piece of news more generally interesting. Come on, Jane.
Do you really think it would be safe to send some pork to bait? A Hartfield pork is not like any other pork. It is quite safe, I assure you, so long as it is well boiled.
I believe you were at Hartfield at the same time as Mr. Frank Churchill. How is he? Is he a handsome young man?
I believe he's generally thought so.
His man is good?
I believe they're generally thought so.
Is he...
They must be sure not to roast the pork. Nothing is more injurious to the health.
Emma, how do you think your friend Harriet Smith will take the news of Mr. Elton's betrothal?
Quite well, I imagine.
Emma, do you think we might be able...
Yes, of course.
I don't believe what was just happened. I was just shouting from the lane and that Howard Asher shot and who should come in. But Robert Martin!
Emma, could we possibly... Oh, God.
Wonderful news for everyone.
Frank comes tomorrow.
How wonderful.
We'll see him tomorrow to a certainty. Mr. Weston and I are so happy.
I can imagine.
Well, Frank Churchill.
Yes.
Emma, could we possibly...
Excuse me, Mrs. House. I just wanted to apologise for the scene I just caused. I'm quite myself again.
I thought so.
Miss Woodhouse. Oh, hello, Miss Smith. Have you received invitation to Mr. Elton's wedding yet?
Your friendship seems to be doing her the world of good, Emma.
Oh, well, I just came to thank you for the loin of pork. Such kind neighbours. I swear no one ever had. If there's one thing my mother likes more than Proust, it's a good joint of roasted pork.
Oh, praise God.
Roasted pork. She roasted pork. She roasted pork. She roasted pork.
Excuse me, I have some business to attend to.
I'm worn out.
Do I have the honour of addressing Miss Woodhouse?
Emma, please. Emma, get up.
I have heard you praise Miss Woodhouse, but believe me, even if extravagant praise could do you just little justice, I'm Frank Churchill, and I'm honoured to make your acquaintance.
I am honoured to meet you, Mr. Churchill. Please let me show you our grounds.
Next, they brought Mr. Frank Churchill again.
Ah, Highbury, that airy, cheerful, happy-looking Highbury. It will always be my constant attraction.
Their first pause was at the Crown Inn, an inconsiderable house. It had been built years ago as a ballroom, but such glorious days had long since passed.
What a damn shame. Its original purpose should have been ceased. No, there shall be balls here every fortnight, throughout the winter.
He spoke like a young man very much bent on dancing.
I believe you visited the Bateses yesterday. How do you think Miss Fairfax is looking?
Oh, ill. Very ill. That is, if a young lady is allowed to look so ill. Oh, she's so pale. She gives the appearance of ill health.
You do admire her, except for her complexion.
I cannot separate Miss Fairfax from her complexion.
I've known her from a child. It is natural to suppose that we should have been intimate, but we never were. Perhaps it was from that wickedness on my side, so prone to taking a dislike to someone so cried up and idolised as she always was. And then her reserve. I could never attach myself to someone so completely reserved.
It is a most repulsive quality indeed. One cannot love a reserved person.
I have no reason to think ill of her, not in the least, except for such perpetual cautiousness of word and manner. It's apt to suggest something suspicious to conceal.
Couldn't agree with you more.
An illicit love affair?
God forbid. Emma! Frank's gone away to London again.
When?
This morning, after breakfast. Sent for his chaise and left.
But why?
Just the trifling silly fellow I took him for. And now, Emma, to business. Will you be gracing us with your presence at the Coles dinner party?
You know perfectly well I couldn't possibly.
A very great shame. The blue dress with the white ribbon, or the white dress with the blue ribbon, or the red crepe and yellow muslin, or...
I'd really rather stay in and read.
Oh no, my dear, you must come. The Coles are very respectable. But do be sure to wrap up. You are so fragile.
I shall be but one moment, Mr. Weston. The Coles were a very good sort of people, friendly, liberal, and unpretending. But, on the other hand, they were of low origin in trade, and only moderately genteel. Fortune had smiled upon them. They added to their house in their number of servants.
Nellie, Perkins, thingamajig. I hope you scrub your hands before dinner. They're a disgrace. And these fish knives are quite unpresentable.
And they invited all to their large dining room. They were very respectable in their way.
But they ought to be taught that it is not for them to arrange the terms on which the superior families will visit them. Nothing should tempt me to go.
All received invitations except for her father and herself.
I suppose they know we do not dine out.
Emma felt, however, that she should have the power of refusal. Invitation to the Coles. And she was persuaded.
Miss Woodhouse, Mr. Knightley, welcome to my humble abode.
Large square pianofortes arrived at the Bateses for a Miss Jane Fairfax.
Absolutely astonished. I have no idea who could have sent it.
The illicit passion.
I declare I do not know when I have heard anything that has given me more satisfaction. It always has quite hurt me that Jane Fairfax, who plays so delightfully, should not have an instrument.
Dinner is served.
Soup, meat, claret.
I've made a match between Mr. Knightley and Jane Fairfax. What do you say to it?
Mr. Knightley and Jane Fairfax. How could you think of such a thing? Mr. Knightley must not marry. I'm amazed you should think it. Do not take to matchmaking, for you do it very ill. Jane Fairfax, mistress of the Abbey. Oh, no, 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 no. Every feeling revolts. How could he bear having Miss Bates belonging to him? Thanking him all day long for his great kindness in marrying Jane. So very kind and obliging.
So very kind.
Emma,
So very
not
kind.
mimic her.
So very kind and obliging, such a delightful collation.
Oh, it's nothing. Just something I threw together. Perkins, we'll have music in the orangery. Miss Woodhouse, would you like to kick us off with something?
Miss Fairfax, after you.
Miss Woodhouse, after you.
No, really, after you.
No, after you.
I insist.
Over here, Mr. Churchill. Miss Woodhouse is going to entertain us on the forte piano.
Emma did not repent her condescension in going to the Coles.
I must have delighted them. A worthy people who deserve to be made happy.
There was, however, one feeling of regret for Emma relating to Jane Fairfax. She did, unfeignedly and unequivocally, regret the inferiority of her own piano playing and singing. I hope you didn't venture far this morning, Miss Fairfax, or I'm sure you must have been wet.
I went only to the post office. It's my daily errand. A walk before breakfast does me good.
Not a walk in the rain, I should imagine.
I'm very sorry to hear, Miss Fairfax, of your being out this morning in the rain. Young ladies should take care of themselves. Young ladies have delicate plans.
I'm very much obliged by your kind solicitude about me.
What's this I hear? Going to the post office. In the rain. This must not be you, sad girl. You must positively exert my authority. You must not run such terrible risks, liable as you are to such severe colds. We shall not let her do such thing again. I shall speak to Mr. E. One of our men shall inquire to bring your letters to you every morning.
You're very kind, but I cannot give up my early walk. The post office is an object, and I must walk somewhere. The post office is a wonderful establishment, so seldom that any blunder or negligence appears. So seldom that a letter, amongst the thousands that are constantly being carried around our kingdom, are even carried wrong, and not one in a million actually lost. If one thinks of all that it has to do, and all that it does so well, it really is astonishing.
Quite obvious. Corresponding with a lover. I could have made an inquiry or two, but I am determined not to utter a word to hurt Jane Fairfax's feelings. I mean it.
Here is April. Come already. Have you heard of the governor's position likely to suit you?
I've not made any inquiry.
But my dear, we cannot begin too early.
I've no doubt of meeting with something that will do. There are offices in town which deal in human flesh.
Oh, my dear human flesh, you quite shocked me. If you mean to say a fling in the slave trade, I assure you, Mr. E and I were always rather friends with that abolition.
I was not thinking of slave trade. Governess trade, I assure you, was all that I had in view.
Modernese often disgusts me.
Miss Woodhouse?
Yes, Harriet.
And to think she could marry my Mr. E. The Churchills are moving to London. Now Frank could be with us whenever he chooses. We must prepare for a ball.
The Weston's ball was to be a real thing. A very few tomorrows stood between the young people of Highbury and happiness.
I'm concerned for Frank Churchill's feelings. He is undoubtedly in love with me. I wish I might be able to keep him from absolute declaration. That would be so painful for him. And yet, I can't help but anticipate something decisive.
Miss Woodhouse.
Mr. Churchill.
He's going to propose. My spirits flutter to be back at Hartfield. I must be off.
Perhaps he does not trust himself to be alone with me for long.
He is moving to Richmond, a mere 9 miles away. He shall have every opportunity to come and visit again if he wishes. The ball at the Crown Inn. Miss Emma Woodhouse and Miss Harriet Smith.
I think Miss Elton should be here soon. I have great curiosity to see her. I've heard so much of her.
Mr. and Mrs. Elton.
Oh, but Miss Bates and Miss Fairfax, I thought you were to bring them.
The mistake had been slight. The carriage was sent for.
Well, what a fine young man Churchill is. I'm extremely pleased, and I never complained.
Miss Jane Fairfax and Miss Hetty Bates.
No rain at all. Nothing to signify. Well, this is brilliant indeed.
My dear Mrs. Elton, most comfortable carriage. So very kind and obliging.
My dear Jane, are you sure you did not wet your feet? Mr. Frank Churchill, my mother's spectacles have never been in fault since.
Such a noble fire. I am quite roasted.
Churchill, how do you like my gown? How do you like my trim? How's my hair? Nobody can think less of a dress than I do. When everyone's eyes are upon me, I know that the ball is chiefly in my honour.
How do you like Mrs. Elton?
No, not at all. When are we to begin dancing?
Emma could hardly understand him. He seemed in such an odd humour. There was a restlessness which showed a mind not at ease. What was worse was, as a recent bride, Mrs. Elton must be asked to begin the ball. She would expect it. Emma bore this sad truth with fortitude. It was almost enough to make her think of marrying.
By Mr. Knightley's not dancing than by anything else. He ought to be dancing, not classing himself with the husbands and fathers. His tall, firm, upright figure among the stooping shoulders and bulky forms of the elderly men was such as Emma felt must draw everybody else's eyes. There was not one among the whole row of young men who could be compared to him. Another dance?
Why, Mr. Elton, do you not dance?
Miss Readily!
If you will dance with me. Me? Oh no. Miss Smith has no partner.
Miss Smith? Oh, I had not observed. But if I weren't an old married man, and my dancing days are not over.
Forgive me. I shall not scold you. I shall leave you to your own reflections.
Can you trust me? With such flatterers, does my vain spirit ever tell me I am wrong?
Not your vain spirit, but your serious one. If one leads you wrong, I'm sure the other tells you of it.
I do own myself to have been completely mistaken about Mr. Elton. There was a littleness to him that you discovered and I did not.
The last dance! Come on, everyone! Come on!
I am ready whenever I am wanted.
Whom are you going to dance with?
With you, if you will ask me.
Will you?
Indeed I will. We are really so much brother and sister as to not make it at all improper.
Brother and sister? No, indeed. Frank Churchill with Miss Harriet Smith and his aunt. Something extraordinary must have happened.
I was walking beyond Highbury when the road became deeply steeped by elms. And suddenly before me, there was a great group of robbers. And as I fell, they were upon me. A woman and her son and loads of others, all clamouring for money.
Such an adventure as this. A fine young man and a lovely young woman, thrown together in such a way, could hardly fail to suggest ideas to the coldest hearts and the steadiest brains.
And now I really must be getting back to Richmond.
I have something I should like to tell you.
a sort of confession, and then it will all be over. I'm going to destroy this precious treasure from Mr. Elton. And that will be an end, thank heaven, to Mr. Elton.
But when will there be a beginning to Frank Churchill?
Strawberry picking exposition to Donwell Abbey.
Strawberries, the best fruit in England. Always wholesome. Poor boys are the best sort.
Will you accept the governess's post with Mrs. Elton's friend?
No, not at present.
Poor boys are rather scarce. Strawberries abundant in Bristol. Maple Grove are swimming in them. I'm sure Frank Churchill will be here soon. The only thing wrong with gathering strawberries is all this stooping. Must go sit in the shade. Jane, my dear, come and sit with me. You must simply accept the position of a governess, you know.
Harriet is a charming young woman. I quite misjudged her.
Jane, are you ready for my expedition to Box Hill tomorrow, Jane? Jane?
Jane?
Jane?
Jane?
Jane?
Jane?
Jane?
Jane?
Jane? Jane? Frank, how are you, my boy?
I'm deplorable. The heat is excessive. I'm sick of England. I wish I was somewhere else. I wish I were in Switzerland. Oh, no. I don't know wish to eat. It will only make me hotter.
I'm glad I've done with being in love with him. I should not like a man who is so easily discomposed by a hot morning. But Harriet's sweet temper will not mind it.
Are you coming to Box Hill with us?
Oh, no. I should go home to Richmond in the cool of the evening.
How about tomorrow?
No, if I go, I shall be cross.
Then pray, stay in Richmond.
But if you wish... But if I was, I would be crosser still. If you wish for me to stay and join the party, I will.
Unfortunately, despite all circumstances being in favour of a pleasant party, there was a want of spirits, a want of union, that could not be got over. They separated too much into parties.
This is downright dullness. I've never seen Frank so silent and stupid. Or you.
Look at them. They're flirting together excessively.
Don't say I was cross. The heat overcame me.
It is hotter today.
Not of my feelings. Today I am perfectly comfortable.
You are comfortable because you are under command.
Your command? Yes.
I meant self-command.
It comes to me the same thing. You order me whether to speak, and you can always be with me. You're always with me.
Your gallantry is really unanswerable.
I say nothing of which I should be ashamed. I saw you first in February. Let everybody on the hill hear me from Mickleham to Dorking. I saw you first in February, our companions being exceedingly stupid. Oh, shall I rouse them for you? Ladies and gentlemen, I am ordered by Miss Woodhouse that she requires something entertaining from each and every one of you. Either one thing clever, two things moderately clever, or three things very dull indeed.
Ah, well, that will do just for me, you know. I am sure to say 3 dull things as soon as I open my mouth. Don't you all think I shall?
There may be a difficulty. You will be limited to only 3 at once.
Ah. Well, to be sure, I should try and hold my tongue.
I protest. I must be excused. Shall we walk?
Happy couple! How many a man has committed himself on short acquaintance and ruled in the rest of his life?
Such things do occur undoubtedly. A hasty and imprudent attachment may arise, but there is generally time to recover from it afterwards.
I do not trust my own judgment. Miss Woodhouse, will you choose a wife for me?
Here are the servants with the carriages. It's time to go.
Emma, how could you be so unfeeling towards Miss Bates? How could you be so insolent to a woman of her age, character and situation?
Oh, it was not so very bad. I dare say she did not understand me.
I assure you she did. She had spoken of it since. You have laughed at her and humbled her. It was badly done indeed.
One morning, just as the sun was rising, I heard a young maid sing in the valley below. Oh, don't deceive me, oh,
Miss Woodhouse, is this not the oddest news there ever was?
Well, what news do you mean?
That Jane Fairfax and Frank Churchill are to be married.
What? No tears?
Had you any idea of his being in love with her? You perhaps might. You can see into everybody's hearts.
I begin to doubt my having any such talent at all. I never had the slightest suspicion. If I had, I should have cautioned you accordingly.
Me? Why should you caution me? You do not think that I care for Mr. Frank Churchill. I know we agreed never to name him, but considering how infinitely superior he is to everybody, I assumed you knew who I meant.
Harriet, are you speaking of Mr. Knightley?
To be sure I am.
Oh, God! This is a most unfortunate, most deplorable mistake. What is to be done? Harriet, have you any idea of Mr. Knightley returning your affection?
I must say that I have.
Pray, Harriet, do acquaint me of the history of your hopes with Mr. Knightley.
A difference in his behaviour since the 2 dances. Sense of him talking to me more than he used to. Quite a different manner towards me. One that I cannot recall without a blush. Sweetness and kindness. Filled my whole basket with strawberries and came by and talked so very delightfully about farming.
Is it not possible that he may have been alluding to Mr. Martin? He might have had Mr. Martin's interests in view.
Mr. Martin? No, indeed. I hope I know better now than to care for Mr. Martin. I am sure you can see I have good grounds for hope. Goodbye.
Oh, God! Humiliating! The blindness of my own head! Wretched, wretched! Mr. Knightley, so dear to me. How long has... There has never been a time infinitely superior to Frank Churchill. I've never truly cared for Frank Churchill at all. Except for my affection for Mr. Knightley, every other part of my mind is disgusting. I am insufferably vain, unpardoningly arrogant, universally mistaken, and full of nothing but mischief. Mr. Knightley and Harriet Smith. Such an elevation on her side. Such a debasement on his. Could it be? No, no, it is impossible. How could Harriet ever have had the presumption to raise her thoughts to Mr. Knightley?
The next day, Emma was taking a turn in the shrubbery when she saw Mr. Knightley coming towards her. She'd been thinking of him as unquestionably 16 miles distant. She must be collected and calm.
How do you do? When did you leave my sister?
Only this morning.
You must have gotten wet.
Yes.
Now that you're back, you have some news to hear that will rather surprise you.
Have I? Of what nature?
Oh, of the best in the world. A wedding.
If you mean Miss Fairfax and Mr. Churchill, I've heard that already.
Despite your suspicions, I seem to have been doomed to blindness.
Time, my dearest Emma, will heal the wound. Abominable scoundrel. He will soon be gone, but Jane Fairfax deserves a better fate.
You are very kind, but I am not in want of that sort of compassion.
Oh, Emma, he is no object of regret. He is a disgrace to the name of man, and he is to be rewarded with that sweet young woman. Oh, Jane, Jane, you will be a miserable creature.
Mr. Knightley, I must make this clear. I have never been at all attached to the person we are speaking of. I was tempted by his attentions. An old story, and no more than has happened to hundreds of my sex before. I found him pleasant. My vanity was flattered. He has imposed on me, but not injured me.
I have never had a high opinion of Frank Churchill, but with such a woman, he has a chance. I wish them well. He is indeed the favour of fortune. Everything turns out for his good. He has used everybody ill, and they all delighted to forgive him.
You speak as if you envied him.
I do, Emma. In one respect, he is the object of my envy. You will not ask me what is the point of envy. You are wise, but I cannot be wise. Emma, I must tell you what you will not ask, though I may wish it unsaid the next moment.
Oh, then don't speak it. Don't speak it. Take a little time. Consider. Do not commit yourself.
Thank you. You were going in, I suppose.
No. I should like to take another turn. I stopped you ungraciously just now, but if you have any wish to speak openly to me as a friend, then I will hear whatever you like.
As a friend? As a friend? Emma, that I fear is a word. No, I have no wish. Stay? Yes. Why should I hesitate? I have gone too far already for concealment. Tell me then, have I no chance of ever succeeding? My dearest Emma. My dearest Emma, for dear as you will always be, whatever the outcome of this hour's conversation, my dearest, beloved Emma, tell me at once. Say no, if it is to be said. You are silent. Absolutely silent. At present, I ask no more. I cannot make speeches, Emma. If I loved you less, I might be able to talk about it a little more. But you know what I am. You hear nothing but the truth from me. I have blamed you and lectured you, and you have borne it as no other woman in England would have borne it. Hear the truth from me now. God knows I have been an indifferent lover, but you understand me. I ask only once to hear your voice. Her way was clear, though not quite smooth. She spoke then on being so entreated. What did she say? Just what she ought to, of course. The lady always does. She said enough to show there need not be despair, and to invite him to say more himself.
You may kiss the bride.
I've received a telegram from France. Perhaps would like me to join him in Paris to discuss my critical work on remembrance of times past. It won't interfere with our honeymoon too much. Will it, my love?
We shall spend our honeymoon at Agricultural College. Where will you spend yours, Emma?
Happy as I am for all of you, I could not possibly leave Highbury.
Very poor wedding, very little white satin, and very few lace flowers. It's a pitiful business.
Shh. What a difficult text, and they achieved it, and they sounded like they were at the RSC. They were absolutely brilliant. Can we give them one more clap?
If I could just ask Miss Woodbridge to come back up on stage for a second, please.
Why?
We are so thankful for everything you've done for us this year.
Don't forget to hang your costumes up.